This is All Things Fitness and Wellness, uniting industry thought leaders and fitfluencers on the mission to inspire innovation and encourage people to live a life fit and well. Brought to you by the British Columbia Personal Training Institute. Learn how to train, gain, and retain clients. Visit bcpti.ca. Our next guest has traveled around the globe as an international speaker and presenter on fitness marketing. Alan Leach is the CEO of Westwood Clubs in Dublin, Ireland, and is a chairperson for URSA, boasting over 3 decades of industry experience. In this episode, Alan shares how he accidentally got into sales, why he decided to stay within the fitness industry, and provides valuable insights and takeaways when it comes to sales and marketing strategies. Before we get to the episode, be sure to hit like and subscribe. We have new podcasts weekly which feature industry thought leaders and influencers. Plus, we're continuing our gym and wellness haven tours, which feature inspiring founder stories. I'm your host, Chrissy Van, and this is ATFW. So let's reverse, Alan, and get right in here, because I know your career in the fitness industry spans several decades, but where did this all begin for you?
It's a great story, actually. To be honest with you, when I was young, I wasn't really a sports person. I wasn't actually very good at sports.
Same.
My brothers were all good at sports. They were football and martial arts and whatever. And I was probably more a drama person, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Oh, you and I would have been thick and thieves for sure.
So sport, it's not that I didn't like it. I just wasn't very good at football. I wasn't very good at those sports. I did try martial arts and I was half okay at it, but my brother was an international. And then when I look at the fitness industry, how I ended up in it is probably similar to many people. I walked into a shop many, many years ago, bookshop, and saw the book Pumping Iron. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Of course, legendary.
Bookshelf. And just blown away by Franco Columbo, even more than Arnold, Franco Columbo, Serge Olivier, Serge Nubret. And I just taught this. I just was obsessed. And then started weight training. And in those days, it's kind of going back again. You bought weights and you did them at home because there was very, very few gyms. And it was probably my first venture into when I got into something. I got into it in a big way and bought books and bought magazines. And it's an interesting one, Chrissy, where if you want to talk about how, fitness is starting to get people involved at a lot of younger age, particularly at gyms, is in those days, and I tell people nowadays, people have access to all of the information about training and how to train, how not to train at their fingertips at the end of a phone. In those days, you subscribed to magazines like Muscle and Fitness, and Flex hadn't even happened. And you waited like 6 weeks for your magazine to arrive, and that's where you got your information. So I got into weight training then. And then I was very lucky to get a job like anybody else working in a gym, which was like winning the lottery in those days. I was 20 years of age. And then what happened is, and it was a complete and utter fluke, I ended up in sales. What had actually happened was I was working for somebody at the time. I had no sales skills, no marketing skills, and 2 people walked in the door and happened to join. There was no sales process, and somebody thought that I had done something amazing, and I hadn't. It was just one of those flukes. And then I got involved. I did some sales training, and my first bonus was to be sent to Washington to go to URSA in the US. And in those days, we had to apply for a visa and everything else. And then I really got into the sales thing, and I bought every sales book you can get your hands on: Joe Girard, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, everything. And that's probably been my career. I take something on and I want to learn absolutely everything in it. And even today, when it came to digital marketing, the same thing. Every process starts with get your hands on every book and every training course, and then make the decision yourself. So then when I got into the sales end of things, and I worked with other clients, I went back to university, and I went to university, first a degree and then a master's degree in marketing. And I could have very easily, Chrissy, changed industry. A lot of people I studied with went into insurance and banking and finance, and I just stayed in the fitness industry. So I kind of, when the fitness industry was fairly new in Ireland and Europe, was lucky to be the person who was in the fitness industry who had this massive sales and marketing background. And then I started to train people. And again, when I would do things, I put together really strong training programs. And I thought everybody would have done that, but they didn't. And then there was a bigger demand to provide that sales training. And then clients from internationally, would you do the sales training here? And so that's what I did. And I ended up in the sales and marketing. And then over the years, more into digital marketing, direct response marketing. Really, when people say why, I said, look, everything was to grow membership and grow profits and grow revenue. And when you're a salesperson, you're looking, and a sales director, how can you improve that? And I tend to approach all those things, whether it's digital marketing. Well, before you jump in, is it going to grow your membership? How will it grow your membership? What's the best practice? How are you going to put this into place? How are you going to integrate it with all the other sales and marketing tools you have? And that's really what's happened. And a few years ago, I was approached to take over the Westwood clubs, and they were kind of not struggling. Yeah, they were struggling. And
what
and
year
again,
would this have been at that point?
Where that was like 18 years ago.
Okay.
18 years ago. And what was happening is they were a company that had been successful because they were the first kind of big multi-facility fitness club. But competitors had come along, and competitors with deep pockets, and competitors who could build brand new clubs or brand new equipment and running tracks and swimming pools and charge half the price. And then you had the budget clubs. So I was brought in. And what's interesting is, and I'd say this to anybody in the fitness industry, sales and selling and marketing is not that much different in a big multi-facility club as it is in a small mom and pop ladies only gym. The sales and marketing principles are the same. So of course the rest is history. Westwood Club became hugely successful. Nearly every competitor that it had in 2011 is gone. They just disappeared. They went bankrupt, out of business. It was a lot of difficulties in Ireland because we had this massive recession after what was known as the Celtic Tiger in Ireland. It lasted 6 or 7 years. But we boomed, and we were very successful. But, when people ask me, you use the word, what's the secret sauce? What's the secret? And I say, it literally is working hard 365 days a year and doing things professionally, whether it's sales or marketing or management or member retention. As really look at organizations like URSA and like club industry and say, what are other people doing? What's the best practice for achieving the goals that you want? And we're another thing too, as I say, for me and for Westwood clubs, we tend not to study other fitness clubs. We study other industries, whether it's Disney, Ritz-Carlton, Apple. We study what those companies do, and we don't just fall for the latest tool or the latest things. Is try and be professional in your sales and your marketing and your management and your business development, and do what great organizations do. So that's where I am today, 30 years later, running fitness clubs and helping other clubs.
Well, and clearly the success has followed, and it's just like investing in anything, right? You invested in your knowledge bank. Yeah. And I do think that that's a lot of times where people try and accelerate or find the shortcut through that, where at the end of the day, it truly has the big payoff. So as you were coming through these years, you're saying the professional approach. So talk to me a little bit about what exactly you mean by that, because I'm sure there's a couple people in clubs that are like, I'm professional, but maybe aren't seeing success. So when you say that, what exactly do you mean?
I'll use another analogy. There is a very, very famous the Temple of Sound, I think it is, nightclub in the UK that was hugely successful in the middle noughties, 2005, 2006. And there was a guy that ran that nightclub, and it massively successful, like just famous all over the world. And he was asked, what did you do differently? And he said, look, when I came into the nightclub business, I just didn't know what I was doing. I was brought in. And he said, the thing that I recognized very quickly was that every single nightclub run in the UK was run by people who had never studied business or never studied marketing or never studied their craft. He said, I found it very easy because I went to university. I did a degree in business. I did an MBA. I just happened to end up in this. It was nearly a hobby. And I took those principles that you learn at university. They don't always work, but I was able to implement them. And when I look at professionalism, I see it at our clubs. The vast majority of people that work for us, particularly in sales, they've got degrees in marketing, well, some of them in sports management, but definitely we look for people who have a good background in business. I mean, you don't have to be, PhD or anything like that, but that you understand business, you understand management, you've at least studied those things in university. You could still be a fool, but you can bring those into the business. Because when you look at Apple and you look at, Amazon, or you look at Ritz-Carlton, you'll see a lot of these things implement sound, proven business practices in their different functions, whether it's sales or marketing or business management or member retention. There's people out there educated in these things. Now, as I say, they still could be fools. They've got to come in and put that theory into practice, and we would do that. And when it comes to sales, I see it all the time, because a lot of our staff are headhunted by those big companies. Like we have Facebook, Google, it's all of those companies are in Dublin, the European headquarters. And a lot of my salespeople would work for them now, because we provide so much sales training, that when somebody moves into the sales department, they're going to go through minimum 5 days of classroom-based sales training. And then we're providing books and videos and training and send them on conferences so that they become professional salespeople. Now, the good thing about that, Chrissy, is there's less than 1% of fitness organizations that do that. It makes it very easy to compete. People can come to me and say, this person would be a good salesperson. And you kind of go, have they had training? Do they understand the sales process? And the answer is always no. When you're going, I would nearly prefer people to come into me and say, I've got great fitness knowledge, but I know nothing about sales. I don't even think I'd be that good at it, but I'd like to give it a try. Because when I get them, they've no bad habits. They'll follow the systems. And it is about systems, Chrissy, whether it's sales or marketing or management or retention. Everything is about systems that have been proven. You can change them along the way, but if you don't have a system for these functions in your business, it is going to be a lot more difficult, particularly as you grow, because as you grow, people can start doing their own things, and you don't find out till a year later that one of your clubs all of a sudden is gone completely the opposite direction. And you can see the problem. But a lot of it is down to systems. I mean, we think about it. Finance has systems, and they've had them for years. And because finance has been around so long, you're not going to hire somebody who you think they've got a nice personality and they've got a good leaning towards figures and say, will you do our accounts? You wouldn't do that. And I think it needs to be the same with sales and marketing and customer service. Like I show this in some of my presentations. I always do, actually, but we put together a member service strategy. I mean, that starts with, and not everybody does, with going online and buying 10 to 15, 20 of the best customer service books you can get, taking the time, even if it's 6 months, to put together a proper member service training program. Now, we will bring in, research from the industry, from Paul Bedford, from Paul Brown in Australia. We look at what they'll do. We look at the URSA publications, we look at all of the different things, and then really get together a sound training program that every member of staff would go through to deliver the service that you want. I think where technology is making things easier, it is definitely easier to put those training programs on videos online, so that the manpower is not as intensive, because you can say to people now when they join your company, and this is important, Chrissy, that means cleaners, front desk people, builders, that everybody understands, even if you're never going to be involved in servicing a new member, that you watch this and you understand the culture. But professionalism is about, what would a marketing manager do at Google or Apple or Tesla or anyone? What would a marketing manager be doing? What would a salesperson be doing at Salesforce or Oracle or HubSpot? What would a customer service manager be doing at Disney, Ritz-Carlton? What would they be doing on a day-to-day basis? What have they done to be successful? And can you bring them into how you run your fitness clubs?
Fitness World's 16 British Columbia high-value, low-cost gyms are committed to helping people reach their fitness goals, whatever those may be. Exercise and movement play a pivotal role in supporting people's overall health and wellness, and it is Fitness World's mission to provide the facilities, services, and amenities to help you achieve your fitness your way. Visit fitnessworld.ca for more information. it's such a smart strategy, because
Yeah.
I think so many people think that they need to crack some sort of code, where quite
No.
literally the framework is there. You
Yes.
have these proven examples, and you see that a lot of times, even in communities, right?
Yes.
Something successful in a city, you replicate that same model in the
Yeah.
small town that doesn't have it. More than likely, your business is going to thrive. And it's not
Yes.
like you're pulling something completely out
Yeah.
of the box.
Yeah.
How much focus do you have to put then when it comes to behavior changes from your consumer? Obviously, like coming out of the recession at that point in time, buying behaviors change. Again, out of the COVID, people's focuses change. How much do you have to change your techniques, or do the frameworks kind of stay the same when it comes to selling?
That's a brilliant question. And I've been asked that so many times. And you know, the new marketing, the new sales. I love when my competitors talk about the new marketing or the new sales, because I go, great, they're going to change everything. We're not.
Nice.
It's very funny. I mean, why anybody would think that marketing has to change because we had a pandemic 2 years ago. Like, it's ludicrous. We didn't change. That's the whole secret. There are proven sales and marketing principles that may change over time, but they don't change as quickly as you think. And, when people ask me, what are you doing differently? Absolutely nothing. And that's what got us through. Why would we change anything? There was a pandemic. People weren't allowed to leave their homes. The pandemic, the lockdowns have stopped, because we had 10 months lockdowns, 10 months. And we're actually at this stage 17% ahead of pre-COVID. We have never been as busy as we are. Our turnover, I mean, would frighten you. It's gone up like a huge amount, millions since before COVID. It has actually made it easier to sell, I think. I don't know why. But the sale, where you have to be careful is, if I was going to advise anybody where you have to be careful of these things, is that after COVID, particularly for the first 12 months to 16 months, selling became a lot easier, because you had this pent up demand. You had people that stopped their memberships in clubs. They were coming back, but we always knew that was not going to last. And those periods can make salespeople and sales systems very lazy, because they say, oh, they're just coming in and they're joining, but that's going to end. You're going to have to go back to lead generation, getting people into your clubs, really working on the service, delivering that service. But the consumer, I'm always amazed when people say the consumers change. They kind of go, look, 30 years ago, I was dealing with consumers. I want to be fitter. I want to be slimmer. I want to be more attractive. I want to be healthier, whatever it is. They didn't suddenly decide after COVID, I don't want that anymore. They still want it. I think people have to get back to the basics of why people join health clubs. If it has changed, Christy, and I think this is where, and it's probably anecdotal. Now, when I say anecdotal, I do a lot of presentation. I've asked the question many times, and a lot of people in the audience back it up. There has been a massive increase in the number of people who have gone to strength training. Strength training is booming, which is great for clubs, because they don't have to spend as much money on cardio. I mean, you could fit out a new strength area for the cost of 2 or 3 treadmills. And we've been extending and extending and extending, and we're putting in planning application to extend our strength training areas. So there's no doubt huge increase in strength training. Either I'm getting older, or I am getting older, but there's also a huge increase in the number of young people who are joining gyms. But I think where the consumers changed, and it has helped the fitness industry, is social media, social media, social media. And I don't put it down to the way fitness clubs are doing social media, because we're not that good at it. Let's be perfectly honest. The influencers are doing a far better job. The personal trainer who's training people online and who's doing it really well, they're doing a great job. But I think where social media has changed it is, and if I go back to what I said, where I start in the industry, I'll just pick for the sake of it a woman who would have been afraid of doing weight training years ago. Well, the only way she would know that, look, you're fine to do weight training, and this is the type of figure you're going to get doing weight training, is she either subscribed to magazines, I did, or she met a salesperson like me who could try and explain that to her. The difference nowadays is that information is available on your phone, online. Young people are seeing everybody is weight training. They're seeing the influencers, not even just influencers. They're reading about film stars and other people that are benching and deadlifting and shoulder pressing and squatting. And what you have now is the age of the pre-educated consumer. That's definitely happening. That the new member nowadays who's thinking about joining gym, can very easily have been on our phone looking up, or a guy, how do you build muscle? How do you tone up? What's the benefits of weight training? And we all do it, whether we're buying a new camera for our studio or whether we're buying anything, a car, we're researching online before we buy. So there is definitely that pre-educated consumer, and it is being driven by social media, but it's great for the industry because I think it's more, I always said this, and I remember thinking about a goal when I originally joined Ursa. The great thing for the industry is when people of 15, 16, and 17 see being a member of a health club or regular working out as something that you need to do, like brushing your teeth or studying. You may not like it or you may not love it, but it's something that you do. And I think that has been speeded up by social media, that they're less fearful. They're still fearful, but less fearful of the gym because they're seeing average people working out in the gym and they're lifting. And I mean, and that is happening, the pre-educated consumer. So they're definitely coming in younger, or I'm getting older, but there's definitely a demand for weight training. And it's great. The industry, particularly in Europe, is booming because of it.
Oh, and I could not agree more. I think it's so fascinating as well. I've been going into gym spaces and
Yeah.
obviously with permission, but doing Q&As. And a lot of the young people too, their why and connection to why they work out.
Yes. Yeah.
I know it's a narrative that we use a lot of the
Yeah.
time. Exercise is medicine. Obviously,
Yeah.
these messages are out for a reason. We're trying to as well get different lobbying efforts,
Yeah.
post-recovery things we needed. However, that generation, the amount of times they say to me that it's absolutely necessary for their mental health, and
Yes.
they're the ones that actually are delivering that message out on
Yeah.
social media and having the conversations when you look in their comments threads.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, even my daughter, and she's an artist. Okay, she wouldn't use. She joined the gym, but it's really interesting, which is another thing about prices. She didn't join our gym, but anyway, is that I can see it with her sitting on her phone, watching TV, doing her art. She's looking up what works in training. Now, it's not her obsession like a lot of people, but it's very easy to get that information. And like anything that we decide to do, like I'm learning obviously Premiere Pro at the moment, and you can go online and you can learn that stuff for free on YouTube. If you're prepared to put that in. But definitely I see it, an example would be this, Chrissy. We were always aware of the deconditioned market and the person who had been trained and the importance of attracting them and not alienating them, and the fears and intimidation factor and getting over that. And, and I've been in the industry a long time, and you were always cautious of, what you'd put in so your gym doesn't become too serious. And there's no doubt 10, 12 years ago, we would not have had professional lifting platforms and squat racks, and certainly, and I remember the first time we gave in and put two of them in. The difference today in a short period of time, you walk into our clubs now, we can have 8 and 9 in a row professional power racks, and we constantly having to keep adding them. We took over tennis court to add them in. These are professional powerlifting platforms where you do your deadlift and your squat, and any Monday, Tuesday night, Wednesday night you go into those gyms, they are full. Before we added them was queues, and 50 to 60% of the people using them are now women, people in their 50s or 60s. So there's definitely that strength training, bodybuilding, powerlifting type of training has certainly moved into, what people do at gyms. There's no doubt about it. And that's across all demographics, which again is great news for the industry.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing really the ages on both sides of the equation, because when I
Yes.
think of someone like my own mom, she's 68, she just got into pickleball, which of course is the
Yeah.
fastest growing sport. And this was an inactive woman, honestly, for the
Yeah.
last 2 decades. I think the only thing I've ever seen her do is go for a walk. It's expanded her complete social. And then all of a sudden she's telling her friends. And so she's more the word of mouth generation in regards to, she never embraced technology, which was unfortunate, but it's so impressive to see. When it comes to social media though, and marketing, you bring up such a great point. The fact that all of these young folks are sharing the message and bringing more people in the doors. Do you leverage any influencer types or your customer base within your walls? Because I know some gyms now are creating certain spaces for social media content to take place. How are you taking advantage, or perhaps not, within your doors?
Oh, it's very interesting. Sal Pellegrino, he gave a presentation there at Ursa, and he showed our clubs, because we have selfie areas in our clubs. We've had them for ages. People go in and take selfies. It is interesting. I remember a couple of years ago, and I was doing stuff with I was speaking somewhere in Europe, and people were talking about it. And it's funny how things change. Should you allow people in the gym with their phone? And like, this is 6 or 7 years ago, and people were discussing, how do you stop it? How do you do it? And I remember thinking, and who was else speaking? They were saying, you're not going to stop this. You're just simply not going to stop it. You are not. This is it's tied to their hip. Now, we do have to manage them sitting on desks all day, on benches with phones, but we encourage them to share it. It's absolutely fine. And why wouldn't you? It's free advertising. It's free. Now, we did have issues. People using them in dressing rooms, and they're just being silly, like just taking pictures of themselves and forgetting other people are behind them. And we try and manage that. But we definitely have no problems with people sharing stuff on social media. Why would we? We don't currently, and again, it goes back to what I said earlier, we don't currently pay influencers. I'm not saying that we wouldn't do it. And it's like everything we do with search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, YouTube marketing, video marketing, we like to know, or I do, everything about that practice and what happens in that before we jump. Because I can tell you, it's very easy to pay an influencer, and a lot of people don't even know what an influencer gets paid or what they do. But we get a lot of it for free anyway, a lot of it for free, because people are taking pictures of themselves and posting. I thought the funniest one was, just for a little story, we had to get signs in our changing rooms and put in place a communication program to say, look, you can't use your phone in the changing rooms, and you can't be using them in the spa, because these are people enjoying themselves. But one guy took a photograph of himself. He didn't even realize that when he took the photograph, the sign telling him not to use the phone in the changing room is behind him. But he was lovely. Someone said it to him, and he kind of thought, wow. But yes, there's no doubt. Look, we have done really, really well, and the industry has done really well, because the health club gym message has been taken to the masses without us having to pay for it. And I think not everybody sees that. And it's being done by young people and influencers. And of course, everybody, what's an influencer, and I remember people having problems, well, what if they give bad advice, these influencers? And well, hold on a second. I mean, I've an academic background, and they start, hold on a second. Like, a bench press is pushing from here to here. Like, they're telling people to do it. What's the problem? What is the problem with some young 21-year-old girl who's super confident, looks fantastic, and wants to make a living doing this stuff? Fair play to her. Why not? And if you're threatened by that, you're in the wrong industry, really.
No, I agree. And it is so true. The amount of times influencer gets this super negative connotation, and truly they are your best allies. They're already in your doors. They're wanting to share this content.
Yeah. And look, I know how hard they have to work. But I do see people getting jealous of them, and I go, look, these young people would never have had a chance of making a living doing this before. You had a couple of magazines, they would have never got a look in. So if some young girl is out there building up a huge following and making a very good living out of it and doing well, not doing any harm to anybody, and she's over in Greece getting her photographs taken over there, why not? Fair play to her. Great.
Yeah, I mean, they're championing our industry. So
yes.
Exactly. That's the best thing that we could possibly ask for. And now, as we started chatting, obviously framework's something that you spoke a lot to. We're into 2023. I know you mentioned that consumer behavior out the window, you're still doing the same thing. So when people are learning from you, what are kind of the key parts of that framework, without giving everything away, because obviously we want people to come see you, but where are the specific areas of focus that you would say are most pertinent for success?
When I started in the industry, face-to-face selling was extremely important, because somebody would say, can I have a look around? What do you do here? Do you have a swimming pool? And your job as a fitness salesperson was that 45 minutes later, you're hoping that this person you've just met will become one of your clients or your members. And then you've got to have a service system in the background to make sure they looked after. I've always believed in separating out the two. If you look at Westwood, we have 27 salespeople and probably 400 people to look after the members. And the job of those salespeople is to grow our membership. So face-to-face selling was very important because the product was complex, and you had to persuade people who were nervous, intimidated, embarrassed, keep putting off going to start a club. So your job was to get them to make that decision today, to buy membership, to buy personal training, and then you'd get them on their path to fitness. That has not changed unless you move into the budget area where you say, well, I'm not going to rely on salespeople. I'm going to sell it at $15 a month. We're like $120 a month, I think, with the conversion rate. So people don't just go online and say, I want to join. That doesn't happen. In the old days, lead generation was give us somebody else's name or stand on the street, where things have revolutionized this. And I've been talking about this for 10 years and still people haven't caught up. We get more leads than we know what to do with. Our problem is not getting sales leads. Our problem is getting back to them. So the secret for any fitness club, personal training studio, chain of clubs is to have a really good online presence to generate leads. It doesn't need to be complicated. In our case, we offer 3 and 4 day trial memberships where people could come and try the club. And then we have a sales process to convert them into full-time members. It's a very simple model. We generate at the moment about 3,400, 3,300 new leads on average per month through our website. So we're very good at search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising. Since COVID, it's been so busy, we had to turn off our pay-per-click advertising in the last 8 or 9 months. Yeah, because why? You couldn't even deal with these leads. So the first system is you really don't have to do, when it comes to lead generation, what you did 15 years ago. Standing on streets, asking every new member for 5 leads. You don't need that in my book as much anymore, and salespeople never liked it. So because literally we have our website, which is connected to our internal databases. We've been doing that for the companies I work with for 30 years before people even spoke to it. So lead generation, names, telephone number, emails, then our salespeople are following up immediately to move you from being someone who just inquired to come and visit our club. We also have, and then, very sophisticated marketing automation systems. We use Microsoft Dynamics so that if you applied online, there's SMS messages, email messages, the salespeople, they're all working in tandem. So the minute you apply, you're getting an autoresponder giving you a little bit of information about the club and thanking you for applying. Our salespeople, and it's all automated. If they phone you and there's no answer, there's an immediate SMS. Just Alan here at the club, at Westwood Club, you're inquiring about coming in, give me a call back. They're following them up the next day. Then there's a chain of 10, 15 emails all set up in marketing automation in the background. That's all work, by the way. So everything for us, and I think for most clubs that are successful, is you're generating leads online, and then you've systems and people and management structures to do everything in your power to move them from somebody who is interested to coming to visit your club. We do not sell online. We do not advertise our prices online. Everything is about selling at the club. And then the system involves, look, I can never say this enough, all of that goes out the window, and it's a waste of time that if you cannot sell them when they come into the club. And the average person, I'm telling you, does not have the sales skills to sell those people when they come in my book. Many of we have never hired an external sales manager, never. Every single sales manager in the last 20 years has come up through the ranks, so that by the time they become a sales manager of a club, and I'll give you an idea, our Clontarf club, that's just one of them, has 11,500 members. Wow. Premium price. These are big clubs, hugely successful, 15 million turnover in one club. So they're hugely successful, but everybody that works at Westwood knows it is hugely reliant on the sales teams. The sales team's ability to follow up those leads, to convert those leads, to get those leads to turn up in the club, to give them the best possible tour, to make that person makes the decision. This is the club for me and I want to get started. Then we've GMs and department managers, and again, software that is working in the background to deliver the absolute best service. Now, Chrissy, do we get it wrong? Every day of the week. We get our sales systems wrong, we get our marketing systems wrong, we get our service, but we're measuring it all the time and saying we've got to improve this, and it's constantly improving. We use a lot of direct response marketing. So direct mail is a big thing still with us, where we're going to lead and saying, with offers twice a year, the big campaigns. Those direct mail campaigns can generate 3.5-4 million in one campaign in dollars. We've been using them for years. But what you'll find, Chrissy, is because I was involved, I was teaching direct response to the banks and that for years, is direct response marketing, which is your direct mail address, personalized direct mail, and digital marketing. Okay. Most people don't realize the same principles are used. The people that are so successful, and any of them, whether it's, anybody you read, they will tell you that the principles are the same. You're delivering the message through a different channel, but the use of copy, the use of headlines, calls to actions, measuring, A/B testing, all of those things that were done in direct response, you'll do in digital marketing. Just the great thing about digital marketing, if you get it right, is the power is just 1,000 times more. 1,000 times more, because you can measure everything. And with the tools you have now, from search engine optimization to digital marketing to video marketing, you can measure everything. The problem for a lot of marketeers now is that all of these tools are very powerful, but none of them do the work for you. So if you decide I'm going to be in content marketing, Google does not have a package that, well, maybe with the new chat GPT,
I was going to say, yeah,
the content for you. Google do not produce your videos YouTube do not produce your videos. Google do not produce your website. When you use marketing automation software, we use Click Dimensions, or it's HubSpot, or any of these. They do not write your emails, and they do not write your content, and they do not write your articles. They do not post it on your website. They just provide the tools. And where a lot of people run into difficulty is they buy these things and then realize, oh, I didn't realize I had to write articles every week. And that's where the influencers are very good. So an example would be, if you go in and you would have heard years ago, you should have a blog. Now, you should have a blog. A blog is a very powerful tool. But when people ask me and clients I work with about a blog, and I always start up with this, okay, great. So at the moment, how often per week would you write, articles for the newspapers? I don't. Well, how often would you write articles for magazines? I don't. So, okay, maybe you subscribe to some newsletters or that. No. And I always say, well, what makes you think that now you're moving into blogging, that you're going to produce content every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday? That's where people get caught. And it's the same with video marketing. I'm going to get into video marketing. He says, well, at the moment, you're busy running your club, opening your club, putting on your classes, servicing your members, keeping the place clean. And you're suddenly going to find time that you are going to produce videos and get them edited and get them color corrected every Monday and Wednesday. And that's where they run into difficulty. And that's why a lot of this stuff stops. And that's why finding people that will do that for you. So I tell you what, I'm a huge fan of Chrissy is, because we're big clubs and we have a lot of people working departments and reception and whatever. They still laugh at me in work. I will always go down to the people that work for us in those departments, and my first, oh, how you doing? So you studying? Oh yeah, what are you studying? And I always ask it, medicine, whatever. And a lot of our videos and stuff that we produced, that's because I went to somebody who was in their second or third year, because it's big here, and they were doing video production or film production or whatever. And finding a good photographer is a big thing. If you can find somebody that's available to you, and if they're good, we have a photographer. He's Polish. I found him years ago, and he does all our photography, and he's on first call now. And there's anything to be done, give Powell, book him in. And because the thing is, a lot of people don't do it. As I say, the influencers are really, really good at it, because that's what they do. That's what they do, 7 days a week. They're very good at it.
And so obviously a couple times you've mentioned, I've been doing X for 10 years. I've been doing this, and people are just catching up, or perhaps not even there yet, which I can clearly hear. You're a lifelong learner. You sound extremely passionate even still, which is so incredible, especially when you've had I'm sure, the ups and downs through the career. So what excites you when you look into the future of fitness?
You see, I've been very, very lucky. And I always say this to people to come here. If you're in sales, like I remember once when I went to a company, if you're in sales and you're good at it and you know what you're doing, you can go into a fitness club and you can make an impact very, very quickly. And that's what happened to me. And particularly if there's an owner there, and I'll just pick an example of one club. And let's say they're selling 200 memberships a month and they've been dipping to 180. If you're really, really good at sales, and I'd say this to any person in the industry, and you go into a company and you better start, if you start with the premises, look, I'll do what I need to do, but you need to leave me alone for 3 months. Here's what I need from you. Do not talk to me for the first 3 months and let me do everything I need, and make that very clear to an employer, because you got to remember that gym owner is looking for return on their investment. They want to make sure they don't go bankrupt. They want to pay their wages and they want to expand. And of course, with sales, which is great, is if you go in and you're good at it and they're used to seeing 180 new memberships a month and you're selling 350 consistent or week, whatever, all the time, they suddenly think that you can walk on water and you get away with doing anything. And I've been very lucky in my career as a CEO and, whatever, to be allowed to do what I need to do. I've never been interfered with. And it's about, just putting together your plan and being prepared. And then the thing is, when you bring in the money and you make that till ring and people see the results, they're not going to interfere with you. And I've been very, very lucky to be that way. But I'm very lucky because I'm allowed to do the things that I'm allowed to do. So I've always been passionate about sales, about marketing, about digital marketing, and allowed to go off and just research everything. And I get away with a lot. I mean, I can say just, no, I'm going to do this and that's it. And, and I'll tell you a good story, right? Many, many years ago, I had used direct marketing in the past and hugely, hugely successful and highly profitable. But a lot of people, direct mail doesn't work, and we built the club fully from cash and sold it for millions simply through direct response marketing. And I remember with this other chain, and it was this one actually, they said, look, about a direct mail campaign. It was coming out of recession. It was going into recession, and at the time, it was a small enough one. It was about 70 grand, okay, in postage. And I went in and I said, yeah, here it is. And, when they're writing the check, and it was different MD at the time, this check, and it's like, can you guarantee? I said, look, the only thing I can guarantee you is when you sign that check, you're never going to see it again. It's gone. And I said, you've got to trust me, I'm telling you, you're never going to see that check again. And I said, but what I will tell you is this: if you get the normal percentage that I know join, and they join, pay a joining fee. We charge very high joining fees, and leave the next day, you've covered that check. And I said, always work on 1% response rate buying. Sometimes it's 0.9 or 1.2. If you get the average lifetime membership, you're going to take in about 2 million. We did 2.1 million. So again, for me, Chrissy, is when you do things like that and you know what you're doing and you go into it and you're sure, you're allowed to do your thing. So I'm very passionate. I'm very, very lucky. As you say, I'm a lifelong learner. Sometimes things can get hectic, but don't get stressed. As when business is good, and I've been doing it for a long time. And, people that have worked for me over the years, they're very good now as well. And they, when they worked with me several years, they've gone and worked for the competition, and, and they've done very, very well. And they'd still call me, and because they know, if you stick to the basics, and get them right first, do not fall for the latest shiny object. If there is a new shiny object, research it, and you're not going to die because you were a little bit slow taking off with it. Actually, in my experience, it's the people that jumped on these things too quickly, they got badly burnt. And a perfect example is pay-per-click advertising, because the most intelligent people on the planet still did not know, is this a good investment, a bad investment? And even if it is a good investment, you need to know what you're doing, or you'll just throw money down the drain. So, I'm a firm believer, spend the money, but make sure you're getting the return on it all the time. But, when you're in it as long as I are, tend to know what works and what doesn't. Let me give you an example, Chrissy. When people ask me about digital marketing, and I say, it's funny, there's digital marketing courses everywhere, from 1 day to 4 years, and they're just worlds apart. But when I say to somebody, I say, look, do you understand really when you talk about digital marketing, what most people are talking about? And I say, what you're really going to study is how to make two of the most richest companies in the world richer. Because when they talk about digital marketing, what you're really talking about is advertising. It's not digital marketing. It is advertising with two companies, Facebook and Google. You're advertising. And so that's what you're doing. And you can try free advertising through search engine optimization or posting on Facebook. And trust me, they're going to cop on quick enough and they'll make it more difficult for you. But generally, you're paying those people more money. And those two companies have shareholders, and those shareholders want a return on their investment. And when you tell people like that over 98% of Facebook's revenue comes from advertising. That's why, they have huge PR juggernauts to convince you that you are being left behind if you don't pay them money. Now, that's not to say it's bad. Facebook advertising, Google advertising, like any other advertising, if you manage it well, can be hugely profitable, but know what you're doing. And it's even more important, those products, because Facebook and Google are self-administered advertising platforms. You don't have an agent. You've got to do it yourself. And you've got to understand how they work, or you will pay a fortune to get a lead. I mean, I remember, and again, just another anecdote, somebody came to me once. This is a guy that worked for me as a competitor now, and he said to me about Google Ads. And I always try to just bring him back to reality before he does it. And I said, let me say this to you. If I walked down to you now and said I was just up in the shop, this is what I said to him, and I stood outside, and I begged people for their name, telephone number, and email, that they could get a free day's trial at your club. And I said, I've got 10 names here. And I said to him, would you give me 900 euros for those 10 names? And he said, no. 600? 400? No. 100. I'll give them for 100 euros if you give. No, I said, you wouldn't even give me 50 euros. I said, yet there are people paying 900 euros for 10 leads through AdWords because they never checked it, because they think, oh, look, we pop up for lower your blood pressure, and said, but you do your analytics and check. Well, actually, by the time they actually became a lead in your database, you paid this amount of money for them. So that's where you need to be careful.
Oh, it's so very true. You're just this wealth of advice and wealth of knowledge. And honestly, I think the thing that's, again, most inspiring about yourself is that your passion comes off of your being as you're communicating. And so you're definitely one that people can learn from. And it sounds like those that have been under your wing have gone to great places. And I think that's the biggest testimonial to a strong leader, when you're able to see people thrive and continue those relationships in such a positive way. I do love to end every podcast with a quote, a nugget of wisdom that we can take to fuel ourselves. So what would be something that you could share with us to leave us off and fuel the day?
I'll say one from, and I always say this sometimes, and it's not to do with sales or marketing, it's to do with management. And where some people get it wrong, and it's Peter Drucker. You probably know Peter Drucker, and he would say that, and I'm not going to say it's not verbatim, but you get the gist of it, that no employee owes any employer loyalty. And what he was talking about is that this idea that an employee relationship be loyalty. And he said, it is nonsense. They owe you good work for the money you pay, and to deliver a good work ethic and do the job that needs to be done. Because this idea that they owe you everything is nonsense. You hire them to do a job, you provide the training, you provide the rewards, you help them do a great job. And if they leave you, you should keep that relationship going. So he would say, and that has always stuck with me, this idea that they have to be loyal to you is just nonsense. Hire them to do a job and then let them do the job. And if they move on someday, that's great too. And you shouldn't try and own them. I'll give you one other. I do always like the Zig Ziglar quote. If you help enough other people get what they want, well, then you'll get what you want. And I think it's very important in the fitness industry. And that's a very famous quote by Zig Ziglar. When you help enough other people get what they want, well, then you'll get what you want. And if you apply that to the fitness industry as well as sales marketing, say, look, and I deal with builders all the time because we're always building instruction. You have to remind people, we're in this business to help people get in shape. That's it. All of the other stuff that you're obsessed about when you're stuck in your office and you're having your meetings, you should never forget that out in your gym floor there are people that are sweating, working hard would rather be somewhere else at this moment in time because they want to be in shape. And if you can build your business around helping people be fitter, slimmer, stronger, healthier, and really be obsessed about that, but do it profitably, well, then I think you'll be successful. And I think the other thing too is never forget the true definition of marketing. And marketing is the proper definition of marketing. It's not advertising. It's delivering value to consumers at a profit. You can deliver all the value if you want, but if you go bankrupt in the process, you've done it wrong. So it is, be obsessed about helping clients and customers get in shape. Choose the equipment, the programs, the facilities, the staff that will have an impact on your members and have an impact on those clients so that they will get what they paid for. And at the same time, do it profitably.
Oh, Alan, I so appreciate your time today. I truly hope that our paths cross. If you're ever in Vancouver, Canada, be sure to say hello, and I'll be happy to give you all the recommendations if you're ever in my neck of the woods.
Thank you very much, Chrissy.
I so appreciate your time. You take care.
No problem.
You've just listened to All Things Fitness and Wellness. This episode was brought to you by Fitness World. Your fitness, your way. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss out on hearing from industry thought leaders and influencers. We are on a mission to help everyone live a life fit and well.